Subscribe to this channel and tap the bell icon so we can continue this journey. The sun had barely risen over the hills of Capernaum when old Elias woke from his restless sleep. He sat up slowly, his bones aching with the familiar protest of age, and looked out through the cracked wooden window of his small stone house. The morning light spilled golden across the valley below, the same valley he had looked at for 67 years. And yet today, something felt different. Something stirred in his chest that he could not name. Elias was not a man of great reputation. He had never led armies, never built temples, never spoken before kings. He was a shepherd, or had been, until his knees gave out 5 years ago. Now, he lived alone on the edge of the village, tending a small garden, fixing tools for neighbors in exchange for bread and oil. Children sometimes mocked him as the old man who talks to goats. His own sons had moved to the city. His wife, Rachel, had died 12 years ago. By the world's measure, Elias was a forgotten man. But on this particular morning, as the golden light stretched across the hills like the fingers of some great and gentle hand, Elias felt something he had not felt in years: hope. He did not understand it. He splashed cold water on his weathered face, wrapped his rough cloak around his shoulders, and walked outside. The air smelled of wild thyme and morning dew. A bird called out from the old olive tree near his doorway. A single, clear, perfect note that seemed to hang in the air longer than it should have. Elias sat down beneath that olive tree, as he did every morning, and he began to pray. Not the formal prayers of the synagogue, with their careful words and proper postures. No. Elias prayed the way a man speaks to someone sitting beside him, quietly, honestly, sometimes with frustration. "I don't understand," he said softly, watching a hawk circle lazily over the valley. "I am old, I am tired. My hands are rough and my back is bent. What is left for me? What was ever meant for me?" The hawk turned in a wide arc, dipped low, and then soared upward again, effortlessly, as though the wind itself were carrying it. Elias watched it and felt tears prick his eyes, not from sadness, from something else, something he couldn't explain. Later that morning, a young woman came to his door. Her name was Miriam, the granddaughter of his old friend Tobias, who had died the previous winter. She was perhaps 19, with dark, worried eyes and flour still dusted on her hands. "Uncle Elias," she said. All the young people called him that, out of respect. "I need your help. My brother Benjamin. He's in trouble. He's stopped eating. He won't speak. He just sits in the corner of the room and stares at the wall. My mother doesn't know what to do. The physician says there's nothing wrong with his body." Elias looked at her for a long moment. He was no healer. He was no rabbi. He was just an old shepherd with aching knees. But something in him, that same unnamed stirring from the morning, said, "Go. Take me to him," Elias said. Benjamin was 17. He sat in the corner of the family's main room, knees pulled to his chest, eyes blank and hollow. His mother stood at the doorway, wringing her hands. His father had gone to work in the fields, helpless and ashamed. Elias sat down on the floor beside the boy, not in a chair, not standing over him. On the floor, close, like an equal. For a long time, he said nothing. The silence in the room was thick. Then quietly, Elias began to speak. "You know," he said, as if talking to himself, "when I was your age, I was certain I was meant for nothing. My father told me I was slow. My teacher told me I would never amount to anything. I believed them both." He paused. "For a very long time, I believed them." Benjamin didn't move, but his eyes shifted, almost imperceptibly, toward the old man. Elias continued, "I had a dream once, I was maybe 15, that I was standing on a great mountain, and I could see the whole world spread out below me. Not to conquer it, not to rule it, just to see it, to understand it, to love it." He shook his head slowly. "I thought it was foolish. I buried that dream so deep that I forgot I ever had it." Now Benjamin turned his head slightly, just slightly. "What happened to it?" the boy whispered. His first words in days. Elias looked at him gently. "I'm still finding out," he said. That conversation lasted 3 hours. Elias didn't offer solutions. He didn't preach. He just talked about failure, about loneliness, about the strange way life sometimes goes completely dark before it opens into something new. He told Benjamin about Rachel, about losing her, about the years of numbness that followed. He told him about the morning he almost walked into the valley and never came back. The morning the birds sang one clear note and stopped him. By the time Miriam brought in bread and water, Benjamin was sitting normally. His eyes had color in them again. Within a week, he was helping in the fields. Within a month, he had begun to study medicine under a physician in the next town. 15 years later, Benjamin would become one of the most respected healers in the region. A man known not just for his skill, but for the particular way he sat with suffering people, on the floor, like an equal, like an old shepherd had once sat with him. Elias didn't know any of that, of course. He walked home that afternoon tired and hungry, and wondering if he had said anything of value at all. But something had shifted in him. Over the following weeks, it kept happening. Small things, seemingly accidental. A widow who needed someone to fix her roof, and Elias, despite his knees, climbed up and did it. A merchant passing through town with a lame donkey, and Elias, who knew donkeys better than he knew people, diagnosed the problem and treated it. A group of children who gathered under his olive tree after school because he told stories the way no one else did, not performing, not teaching, just remembering. And they would sit for hours and listen. None of it was grand. None of it made the history books. But thread by thread, something was being woven. One autumn evening, a traveler stopped at Elias's house asking for water and shelter for the night. He was a young man, perhaps 25, with intelligent eyes and a worn leather bag full of scrolls. His name was Nathaniel, and he was a scribe traveling between cities, copying texts and carrying letters. They sat by the fire and talked long into the night. At some point, Nathaniel asked the old man the kind of question young people ask old people when they feel safe. "What do you think your life has meant?" Elias was quiet for a long time. "I used to think destiny was like a destination," he finally said. "A place you arrive at, a title you earn, something people announce at your funeral." He stared at the fire. "But I think now that destiny is more like a river. It doesn't always look impressive. Sometimes it goes underground. Sometimes it floods. Sometimes it's just a thin trickle through dry rock." He picked up a stick and turned it in his hands. "But it's always moving. It's always going somewhere. And everything it touches, every stone, every root, every thirsty creature that comes to drink, is changed by it." Nathaniel stared at him. Then slowly, he took out a fresh piece of parchment and began to write. He would later include that conversation, thinly disguised, in a collection of wisdom writings that would be copied and passed from hand to hand across the region for generations. Other scribes would copy those copies. The ideas in them would shape how people thought about meaning, about age, about the quiet purposes hidden inside ordinary lives. The old shepherd's words would outlive the old shepherd by centuries. Neither of them knew it that night, sitting by the fire. Elias died in the spring 3 years later. He died the way he had lived, quietly, without ceremony, in his stone house with the cracked window. Miriam was with him. So were 3 of the village children who had grown so accustomed to sitting under his olive tree that they came every day without being asked. His sons came from the city for the burial. They stood at the graveside in their fine city clothes, a little uncomfortable, not quite sure how to grieve a man they had not really known. But the village turned out, all of it. Farmers, merchants, mothers with infants, the widow whose roof he had fixed, the physician's apprentice who had once been a hollow-eyed boy sitting in a corner, the merchant who still remembered the afternoon his donkey had been saved. One by one, quietly, without speeches, they placed stones on his grave. The pile grew taller than anyone expected. There is a question worth sitting with. Perhaps the most important question a person can ask themselves. What if your life is more significant than you know? Not in the way the world measures significance, not in titles or wealth or fame or the size of your following, but in the way a river is significant, in what it carries, in what it feeds, in the life that gathers along its banks. Elias never knew about Benjamin becoming a healer. He never read the scrolls Nathanael filled with his words. He never saw the stones piled on his grave. He only knew the morning light on the valley, the hawk turning in the air, the bird's single clear note that stopped him when he needed stopping. He only knew to keep moving, to keep offering what he had, which never seemed like much, to whoever needed it. And that, it turned out, was enough. More than enough. Your destiny is not something you arrive at. It is something you live, quietly, imperfectly, one ordinary moment at a time. And most of the time you won't know its greatness until long after the moment has passed. But the river is still moving. It has always been moving. End.